This is my community. As always, it's a pleasure to have you along. This week we welcome you from a spot that beckons thousands annually. The program is carried by Sandi Fields-Kellman. Take it over, Sandi.
Brighton is a place that I think that a lot of people, when I was a little girl, came to, one, visit the hot pot, swim in the beautiful, warm, clear waters, and also because of Paradise Hotel, which was just a bit further down, which was actually one of the businesses that was thriving at the time, where it employed waiters, it had salons, it had even people going there to take horses for the guests to ride. And lots of persons who worked at Paradise Hotel lived in the area of Black Rock, lots of them. So Brighton, I say, Brighton is really home for me. We grew up down here in Brighton, and there's Brighton Terrace, and there's Brighton Beach. We grew up in Brighton Terrace. And in that neighborhood, we had the Emptages, the Millers. On Saturdays, we used to go over by Freddie Miller, Uncle Freddie, that we used to call him, and his daughter Billie, Dame Billie Miller. She was a teenager then to us, but we were still like 8 and 9 and 10 years old. So all of us used to congregate at Uncle Freddie's house, and there was a huge pond which had frogs and lilies. And as children, again, because you're curious, and of course, at that time, children really enjoyed children's play. And we used to push each other inside of the pond. Of course, you don't want to fall in there because lots of frogs. And Dame Billie at that time, of course, as being she was older than us and so on, she used to come and say, no, y'all stop pushing each other in that pond. And I mean, she was a wonderful teenager. And we really enjoyed lots of fun there. We used to have corned beef and biscuits when we go at Uncle Freddie and at Dame Billie and Cecil and Luther and Buddy, Atlee and Tim. And I mean, it was like a regime that we had to go there on weekends for corned beef and biscuits. All right. And the other cousins, the other Millers, Annette and Nancy and Harriet and so on, they lived a little further by the hill. And we used to go there and pick Auntie Chloe's and Uncle Harry's guavas. The guavas were green, not ready to eat. And we used to climb up in the tree and pick the green guavas. I remember Auntie Chloe came up one and she says, "What are y'all doing picking up all of the green guavas?" And we would run and she would take the hose and give us a bathing with the hose. Take the hose. And we would run and scamper and I would run home. And my mother would tell me, "Y'all are always doing little naughty things, going and picking all of the green things out of the trees." The Fergusons, the Fentys, the Durants, of course, the Fields family, the Woods, the Downeys. We had, lots of people, and we knew all of us were friends. And there were lots of Fields in the neighborhood who we were family to, and some of them, they lived down on the beach, Brighton Beach. So as children, we did a lot of stuff. We used to go across just by Carlton Supermarket and pick a lot of donks and tambourines and all those different things. We used to pick the hibiscus flowers, and in the hibiscus flowers, they had a little yellow thing, like a little point. And we used to put it on the tip of our nose, right, to make fun. We used to take the mangoes when we were finished eating and rub the mango seed on our face and make our face look stiff and feel stiff. So we did a lot of that. And then on the weekends, there were the Chandlers, prominent family, who kept horses. They had a paddock, actually. And two of the boys there used to put their horses at the garrison to do horse racing. However, when we got older and my mother was getting on, my father decided to sell the house in Brighton Terrace, and we bought a house on Brighton Beach, which was even, wonderful because we were right on the beach. And as children growing up, when we were in Brighton Terrace, there was no farmhousing area. There was just cane ground, bush, trees, and there was a track that we used to go through as children to get onto Deacon's Road. And behind there, all those trees and the bush, was Jenkins, which is now known as the Psychiatric Hospital. But when we were children growing up, it was known as Jenkins. So Jenkins at that time, as I said, and of course it was not as it is now, but mainly where the farmhousing area is located now, it was just all trees and bush. It was fun to go and play hide and seek and police and thief and all that type of thing out there. And as we got older and we knew everyone in the neighborhood up in Brighton Terrace, we used to go to Carlton Club. And it was known at that time for playing lawn tennis, a lot of lawn tennis and cricket. And there was also a supermarket called Carlton Supermarket. But at that time, it was owned by the Hutchinsons. All right, it was not as it is now. Small supermarket owned by the Hutchinsons, and that's where most people in Brighton, even in Blackrock, did their shopping, their grocery shopping. Then we had on Friday nights and Saturday nights, Carlton Club used to have a lot of parties. The Tropical Islanders, the Sand Pebbles, all those bands used to play there. We could hear the bands playing while we were at our homes because it was just like not too far. But of course we were not able to go to those parties because we were only children at that time. Our parents used to go to those parties. But what we used to hear when the people are coming out of the party to get in their cars, the talking and the singing and all that.
Brighton was physically divided, so to speak, with the construction of what was known then as the Spring Garden Highway, now the Mighty Grind Highway. What was the area like?
Remember, Spring Garden was mainly bush and trees. From Spring Garden, okay, going up to the farm. So there were no houses along the highway. The only houses that are still there are the ones going down opposite the flour mill, going to the flour mill. Okay? It was all bush and trees. The only homes that were there were the homes in Brighton, higher Brighton, Brighton Terrace, and the houses that are still here at Brighton Beach. Actually, when they were going to construct the highway, they came to the residents, mainly the residents on the lower end of Brighton, Brighton Beach, rather than Brighton Terrace, because remember, if you lived in Brighton Terrace, you can still go up to Blackrock. You turn right and go up to Blackrock. And by then, they were going to have the farm. The farm was there, so you were able to drive completely through the farm and get to Deacon's Road. But the people came, I remembered, people came to talk about all the plans and so on, the construction, and they showed the plans and so on, the layout and all that. I remember my friend telling me, Gail, about it. And when they then came to do the highway, they started really and truly from the other side, Walmer Lodge, yes, and they came down. Of course, it was modern, it was a great idea, great vision, great foresight, but we from Brighton, we were happy, but yet not happy because we were getting our little road that took us down to Brighton Sea that we grew up with taken away from us. And then of course a highway, with a highway you cannot cross over a highway.
On the morning of Friday, May 15th, 1981, then Prime Minister Tom Adams broke ground to start the construction of the Spring Garden Highway.
This road is only a part of the new highway system which the government is planning for Barbados over the next 5 years. We have commenced the procedures for 2 new highways, one from Highgate Hall to Warrens, and then from Warrens to Blackrock to link up with this road itself when it is completed, and another highway from Wildy via Newton Industrial Park to the airport to provide better access to present industrial development areas at Newton and at Grantley Adams Airport.
What will happen as a result of the construction of these roads? Houses will be moved and persons will need to be relocated. We have provided an area in Wavell Avenue to take care of the relocation of those houses.
Very few houses were moved. So yes, we saw all of the construction going on, all of the barricades and all of the big blocks and all of that when they were doing it.
And after 2 years of construction, in the afternoon of Wednesday, May 25th, 1983, then Prime Minister Tom Adams opened the new Spring Garden Highway. Here's Emmanuel Joseph.
The new highway link is part of the country's plans for a complete new highway, including Spring Garden and St. Barnabas, which will intersect all the major highways from 1 to 7. It's expected to provide a much more efficient road link from Bridgetown to the airport. The outline route for the remaining stages of this road was presented last week to the Planning and Priorities Committee of Government under the Prime Minister's chairmanship.
The preliminary findings indicate that the construction of proposed roadways from Spring Garden to Warrens, the Bell, Highgate Hall and St. Barnabas, and from Wildy to Rendezvous, Warners, Newton and the airport will be economically feasible. The study is being partially funded by the Inter-American Development Bank, and I am sure after our performance at Spring Garden and St. Barnabas that the bank will have no hesitation in making the loan funds available to help the government meet Barbados's road needs into the 21st century. The present timetable is for construction to start in 1984-5 and to be completed by 1988.
Mr. Adams also said that millions of dollars in fuel, spare parts and other maintenance and transport costs can be saved by proper use of the new highway system.
The Cabinet has accordingly decided to increase the speed limit, as the Minister has told you, on this highway, and at the same time absolutely to prohibit parking or stopping for any purpose on the highway. No person will be allowed to offer goods for sale at any point along the Spring Garden Highway. The question of a minimum speed limit and limitation of users is also under consideration. The Ministry of Transport and Works is also examining the feasibility of widening the highway north of Exmouth at the point where the road changes from 4 lanes to 2.
Transport Minister Vic Johnson also addressed the gathering and said that the speed limit on Spring Garden had been increased to 50 miles per hour. He revealed too that a one-way pass will be provided for pedestrians at Brandon's to reduce the need for people to be competing with high-speed traffic. Mr. Johnson also had something to say about the transport levy.
In the period between October 1981 and March 31st, 1983, the Transport Levy Fund received contributions to the tune of $12,418,738. This is a substantial sum of money, and contributors have a right to know how their money is being spent. Up to the 31st of March, expenditure incurred had reached $3,584,636. Of this sum, $957,066 was spent on improvement of transportation and $2,627,570 on road construction and repair.
Of course, it was modern, it was a great idea, great vision, great foresight, but we from Brighton was happy, but yet not happy because we were getting our little road that took us down to Brighton Sea that we grew up with taken away from us. And then, of course, a highway, with a highway, you cannot cross over a highway. So yes, we saw all of the construction going on, all of the barricades and all of the big blocks and all of that when they were doing it. And as I said, it worked out that it is really a wonder, because in this time we need a highway. I do not see how we could have kept that road in 2021. So I really think that it was vision on at that time, the government's vision. I think that that was a great idea.
And the implementation of that great idea opened up the area to many Barbadians who came to enjoy the beach at Brighton.
Now, when we decided to come to the beach, we would go to the hot pot. And some of the boys, not the girls, used to go into the tunnel which runs under the seabed to the hot pot. And they would swim through this tunnel to the pot. And even as a grown person now, I mean, I knew about that. I don't think I would ever have done that. All right? Because the sound of a tunnel kind of like scares me. So we had that. And just before, outside of the rum refinery, there was a long jetty, which is no longer there. And there was a huge rock just before you got to the jetty, and then the hot pot. So it was a rock, the jetty, and the hot pot. And just like now, at this present time, loads of people used to come to swim at the hot pot for all various reasons. But as children, we went to the hot pot for fun. We went there for fun. And over the years, the hot pot became very, very popular. While I was living in Brighton at that time, there were about 2 or 3 drownings. But the one that stands out in my mind is the drowning where they had the 4 boys. There were 5 boys, but 1 boy went to save these boys at the hot pot. And 1 boy, he survived. He later died, but he survived because I remember going to see him in the hospital. He went into a coma. And I think about 6 or 7 months later, he passed. But those 4 boys came down to swim at the hot pot. Now, the hot pot is not rough, but it has undercurrents. So sometimes you think that because you can swim, you're fine, but not necessarily. Because of the strong currents under the water, it drags you out. Okay, and of course, if you cannot swim, that is where the problem comes. And I remember that day so well when those 4 boys drowned. I was still living in Brighton at the time. And then these other 2 boys, another time, came to swim at the hot pot. One got into difficulty, and the other one went to save him, and he also drowned. So those 2 drownings really have stood out in my mind. And I think that there was another drowning since then, but I think by then I had left Brighton and I just heard about it. But again, it was by the hot pot. So the hot pot, I would say, is a place that you have to be very careful. An excellent place to swim if for whatever reason you go there. But I think that you must be cognizant of the water and the undercurrents. And especially a day that the weather is not the best, you can look at the hot pot and see, well, you know what, I don't think I'm going in there, especially if you cannot swim, right? I don't advocate that people who cannot swim go to the hot pot.
Dame Billie Miller, who grew up in Brighton, shares a story of a near drowning experience.
We were near the sea, we could walk to it, but my mother never allowed us to go on bank holidays. Somebody always drowned or came close to drowning there, down at Brighton. It was a big long beach, went back toward town. And Brandon, Brighton ran into Brandon, so to speak. And I only ever in my lifetime encountered one near drowning there. My mother was very ill in the hospital. And my eldest brother, Buddy, who lives in Trinidad, we would be so tired because she was at a stage where she had to be lifted and stuff like that. And so we would go down on a Saturday evening, you know, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I don't know if you know about Brighton Beach, but there's said to be something called the Round Table out there. It's a huge rock that you could actually stand on. But it was quite a distance out. And we're sitting on the beach. And a small group of fellows come and jumped into the sea and swam out. My brother and I are there just exhausted, sitting on the beach. And then suddenly, I said, where are those boys gone? Where have they gone? There was a tall, tall fellow. His parents lived at the bottom of Brighton, very close to the beach. And he was a good swimmer too. And he and Buddy jumped into the sea, swam out. There were 3 fellows. They brought back 2. Had to go back for the 3rd. He was face down in the sand. So he was breathing in sand as well. They brought him. I was a girl guide, and later became a guider. But the girl guide group that I was in, it was Barbados number 1. They taught us life-saving using the Holger-Nielsen method. So you have to put the person lying on the stomach, preferably like this, and for the grace of God, the beach was on a bit of a slant. And you then put the head on the 2 hands, you put the 2 hands here, and then you stand up over, or you kneel, and you then lift the elbows, open up the diaphragm, you go down again, and you can see this sand and water coming out of his mouth, his nose, every orifice. And I'm there and counting just like I was taught to by Sheila Pilgrim, Daphne Joseph Hackett. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when I thought my hands were going to fall off, there was an Englishman who was staying at some friends who were living on Brighton Beach. And he came running. And he said to me, can I help you? I said, yes, please, I think my hands are going to fall off. And he took it over me. And then I started shouting, call the ambulance, stop staring and call the ambulance. You know, Bajans run into a catastrophe. And the ambulance came and took him away. Later that same evening, my brother and I went to the hospital to see Mummy. She was in the hospital at the time. And before I could even get into the room properly, one of the nurses came to me. She said, there's a little old lady. We have her in our room. You know, they have their room with all the things to give injections, to do all these things, so on. And she's asking for you. I said, do you know her name? She said, no, she didn't say it to me. I couldn't think who this was. So I went, my brother went inside the room to be with Mummy, and I followed the nurse. And there's this little old lady. She said, you are Miss Miller? I said, yes, I am. She said, I am the grandmother of the boy that you all saved from drowning. I said, can I give you a hug? Poor soul, she was trembling. Just the thought that he could have lost her. She said, he's very hard ears. We had cocoa and I told him, do not jump in the sea straight away. You eat a heavy lunch, you don't. And that is exactly what he did. Nobody had to tell me that. She was sweet. So I told her, he's okay now though. He's going to be okay. I don't know what his name was. I didn't know much until somebody pointed out to me what his name was. But I never got to meet him properly, but she came to say thank you. But apart from that, Brighton was really a quite safe place. The rum refinery was down at the bottom, and there was a football field down there at one stage. It was really great for crabbing. Oh yes. Big crab holes. But we were warned that in the shootings, you know, they had a shooting marsh like down there, and we were warned that we were forbidden to go there when that shooting season was on. But apart from that, it was a nice place, and we grew up literally on that beach. We weren't allowed to go on bank holidays because my mother said, and she was never wrong on these matters, there is going to be somebody drowning or drowned. You can go tomorrow. But tomorrow's a school day. All right, well, you can go Saturday. But life was beautiful in those days. Really beautiful.
And that's exactly why these programs are produced for you. Life, as it were, in Brighton's as seen through the lenses of Sandi Fields-Kellman and Dame Billie Miller. I'm Sherwood McCaskie. Here's a special invitation for you to join us next week at the same time as we continue our journey here in Brighton's. Goodbye.